Hello and welcome to today's edition of Your Questions Answered with Father Gruner. I'm John Veneri. We take your questions, Father Gruner answers them, we talk about them, and continue to send us those questions at questions@thefatimascenter.com. We had a question about, it's rather long here, so I'm going to summarize it. But the person was asking about a well-known YouTube conservative, we'll call him, Catholic journalist, who recently apologized for quoting a cardinal who criticized the Pope. Cardinal Burke, now the synod was quite scandalous. They had
the synod in October 2014. Okay.
It was quite scandalous. They had a midterm report that talked about the church finding a place for welcoming homosexuals, not homosexuals who would have this vice and are trying to overcome it, but homosexuals as practicing homosexuals, and that even at one point that they should recognize and value their orientation. That's in the document.
Right.
And this is all going on.
And this document allegedly or apparently Francis agreed with?
Well, he's never denied it.
He's never denied it.
And that was that's what Burke is saying. The Cardinal Burke said the Pope has to make it clear. Yeah. He has to straighten this out. And the fact that he has not done this
is doing great damage to the church.
Has caused great damage to the church.
Well, Cardinal Burke is correct, entirely correct, and entirely correct to say so in public.
To say so in public.
Okay,
because
and secondly, any journalist who claims to be Catholic who does not endorse Cardinal Burke in saying this much is wrong. And secondly, if he's gone to confession for mentioning it in the first place, he didn't do wrong for mentioning it, but he does wrong for criticizing it.
Well, that's what happened because this journalist, as I said, very well known, he makes these YouTube videos every day or almost every day. And so he reported that from the Vatican. You could see the Vatican in the background. And then within, I guess, 24 hours, he had removed that video. Then he publicly apologized for quoting Cardinal Burke because it criticized the Pope, and he said he went to confession to confess this heinous, this grave sin he was doing. And
he didn't tell us that his confessor told him he was wrong. Then his confessor, he needs another confessor, But anyway, I mean,
basically the person the person writing does not believe that this journalist did the right thing. He's just saying, where does this thinking come from?
Well, this issue comes, first of all, and this is not the exact question your question is asking, but the question is around this question, which is this Catholic journalist really Orthodox? Is he really Catholic? Is he really doing the right thing? And that's what he's asking, even though he doesn't phrase it that way. Well, the answer, first of all, is we must hold on to the Catholic faith, whole and entire. I'm not making that up. That is what the Catholic Creed, known as the Creed of St. Athanasius, says. So if you want to save your soul, you have to hold on to the Catholic faith whole and entire. Now, for people who are, shall we say, not to criticize ditch diggers or people who only went to grade 1, and haven't understood anything else, their demands on them before God are different from someone who knows better. So for a person who actually understands the faith to the extent they can, to a person who knows the doctrine of the faith, then it is wrong to criticize Cardinal Burke for speaking the truth. The Pope has the moral obligation to clarify the issue. By his not doing so, he is doing damage to the church. It's a fact, and it's obligatory for us to say so. And it's wrong for someone to say, Burke shouldn't have said that. It's wrong to say, I went to confession because I put Burke's statement on TV. Those are the wrong statements. And if they want, and I'm not his confessor. I don't know all the particulars of this particular quote unquote sin, but I can say in public that any person, be he a famous or well-known journalist or not, has the same obligation as a Catholic. Now, if this guy is not a Catholic, if this guy thinks that if he's professing some other faith, his obligation isn't so as great. But this person professing the Catholic faith, professing to be Orthodox, and then criticizes Burke for telling the truth, he's wrong. And I don't know, but I think if his confessor didn't clarify this to him, he has an obligation to clarify to this so-called journalist and so-called Catholic. And if the confessor doesn't get that, then his Catholic confessor also needs an updating of Catholic dogma of all time. This is spoken about by St. Alphonsus, it's spoken about by St. Thomas, it's spoken about by Cardinal Bellarmine. You can't get better doctors of the church.
Cardinal Torquemada.
Yeah, all these men have said these things, and we have the obligation to oppose and to speak out against a pope who would do such things. And Burke is only doing his duty. I can't say I always agree with Cardinal Burke, but in this case, I agree with him fully.
Well, I remember back in the early 80s, Father Joseph de Saint Marie was a Carmelite theologian, worked very closely with Pope John Paul II. Yes. But even he, in a very elevated and gentlemanly manner, he sounded a warning against John Paul II. Yeah. He said, I'll see if I can remember how he said it. He said, in our time, it is one of the signs of the extraordinarily abnormal character of the state of the Church that it is very often the case that the acts of the Holy See demand of us prudence and discernment. Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty reserved way of saying it, but it's very clear what he's saying.
Yeah. Well, very clear. Of course, he's speaking to, shall we say, those who can. But it's true. The fact is, he's being diplomatic to say, look, they say things that they shouldn't say. But in this case, they're now saying in this extraordinary synod, you're telling me what was said in this report.
That's verbatim. I'm not exaggerating.
I'm just saying that the report is leaving it out in open that people can say that they can be practicing homosexuals, and this is welcome in the church. I'm sorry, that is not Catholic teaching. And if one wants to say, we regret, we pray for them, we pray for their conversion, we pray for their, and this is not to say that a person is sinning because somebody somehow or other they ended up with this tendency. The sin is to say this is perfectly good, and that's a sin of word. It's a sin to practice it, and it's just the way it is. I mean, it's not because we're better or worse. It's just this is the teaching of the church.
Even Bishop Athanasius Schneider. I forget what country he's from, but he just gave an interview in which he really ripped that synod document. And the whole thing to shreds, and he talked about. But what he said is this midterm document is the promotion of a neo-pagan ideology.
Yeah.
And of course, if the Pope allows that, I'm sorry, if I allow in my household a neo-pagan ideology to be accepted by my children, then I am guilty. Then I have failed in my primary duty. And I will not save my soul. Yeah. And it's even more so for the Pope, who's the head of the Catholic Church, to speak up and say, this is not Catholic, this is not a viewpoint that can be accepted by Catholics. He's never said that. And to this day, he's never said that.
And the point is that the faithful, be you a cardinal, a priest, a bishop, or a layperson who knows Catholic dogma, has the obligation to speak up.
To speak up,
and to say the Pope is wrong. And yes, we're criticizing the Pope. And is that right? Yes, it is, when the Pope is not doing his job, or when he's, by his silence, scandalizing the faithful.
And we have the word of Pope St. Pius X, too, because Pope St. Pius X, when he, in his opening lines of his encyclical against modernism, he says, I have the duty to speak. Yes. And to clarify this and to teach the truth and to combat error. And if I don't, I will have failed in my essential duty.
Yes.
Well, this is a failure. This
is a failure of Benedict. This is a failure of Francis. And for that matter, I would like to see what Benedict should speak up to. And if he doesn't,
he hasn't said much. No. He says some guarded things, but not much.
No, but he has the obligation. And every cardinal, not just Cardinal Burke, but every cardinal has an obligation to speak up. And maybe they are, but we know if Cardinal Burke is speaking up, and to his credit. And anyone criticizing him for speaking up when he's doing his duty,
or being ashamed of him for doing it. Yeah. So this is what we do face, and the journalist, when he reported what Cardinal Burke said, did the right thing, and he should never have backtracked. In fact, this well-known journalist has lost a lot of credibility as a result.
Well, he'll lose all credibility. He can't be called Orthodox, and he can't be called Catholic. He may be, if he's, at the best you can say he's ignorant, and he's an ignorant Catholic. It's unfortunate, but this ignorant Catholic should not be trying to teach others when he's ignorant himself.
So anyway, that pretty much sums up this question, and I'm sure there's more to say on this topic, but we're going to move on to the next question and to the next episode. Thank you.